Let's dig a little deeper now into the consumer. Every day we're going to examine the health of the consumer this week, one part at a time. Today we look at the heart of consumer spending. Here to discuss is David Tinsley, senior economist at Bank of America Institute. Mr. Tinsley, welcome. Nice to have you with us. I notice you see in your credit card spending kind of a rise in household spending, but it is modest. So there is no real fall off in consumer activity, but it's not growing terribly quickly.
That's exactly right. I mean, credit card spending growth in our data has cooled a lot from the start of, say, 2023, when we were still in that kind of pandemic reopening phase, which superpowered, if you like, services spending. In our latest data for April, year-on-year spending is around 1%, up 1% on a year ago. So there's neither really, when you look through the data over the first few months of this year, an acceleration or a deceleration going on in the data. It's pretty steady, I'd say.
Do I read it correctly or do I misread it that lower income households spending growth is higher than higher income household spending growth?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing in our data. It's pretty interesting insofar as, there's been a little bit of chatter, I think, from corporate reports, and it's almost become de rigueur to think that the low-income consumer is turning over. We don't really see that in our data. We continue to see the low-income consumer spending growth ahead of high-income spending, and indeed their labour market performance as measured by wages and salaries going into people's bank accounts in our data, they're seeing about a 4% year-on-year increase, and it's about 1% currently for the higher income consumer. So really, as your report was alluding to just before, it's the labour market that's largely the sort of bedrock of this story, and the low income consumer remains in pretty good shape for now, at least.
How do tax refunds figure into this spending? Because we're looking at April, a month when a lot of people got refunds.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we've done is we've looked at from the moment someone receives a tax refund, and the average refund was up about 3.5%, but it was skewed to the lower end of the income distribution. We look at spending before and after, and we see about a 35% increase in spending in the 3 weeks after the refund to the 3 weeks before. And interestingly, it's skewed this time towards consumer durables and clothing. So not so skewed towards services, more skewed towards the kind of retail end of the shopping experience. But also, and I think this is a note of caution perhaps, that when we look at debt repayments, we see the lower income consumer deciding to pay down debt to some extent as well, particularly credit card debt and student loans. So they did spend, but also there was a sort of note of caution there, I think, in terms of what they did on debt.